It was one of those unbearably humid Friday nights in Miami, the kind that made the air feel like warm soup, sticking to your skin and making every breath feel heavier than the last. The city outside buzzed with its usual noise. Distant reggaeton from someone's backyard party. The low thrum of cars cruising past neon-lit boulevards. And the occasional shout from a passing group of tourists. But inside Leo's small apartment, tucked away just north of Little Havana, everything was still, except for the glow of his phone screen and the soft hum of a ceiling fan trying its best to keep the heat at bay. Leo was lying shirtless on his bed, scrolling mindlessly through TikTok, half laughing at videos he wouldn't remember 5 minutes later. The only light in the room came from the phone screen and a dim street lamp outside his window. His fan clicked with every rotation, a small reminder that it was on the verge of breaking. He'd meant to call maintenance about it. He hadn't. He had no plans that night. His roommates had gone home for the weekend, and he was enjoying the rare silence. The thought of having the place all to himself was comforting. Until it wasn't. At 2:11 a.m., his phone buzzed. Not a message, not a notification. It was a call. Leo blinked at the screen. His tired eyes took a second to adjust. The contact name read, unknown. And underneath, the number, 305-666-000. At first, he chuckled. What the hell kind of fake-ass number is that? 305 was Miami's area code. Everyone local knew that. But 666? Come on. Okay, he said to himself, lifting the phone closer to his ear. Who's trying to be funny? He hit answer. At first, nothing. No one spoke. He waited, smirking slightly, expecting someone to yell, boo, or do some TikTok horror prank. But all he heard was static, like the sound of an old radio not tuned properly. Faint, distant, like a whisper, buried under layers of noise. He was about to hang up when something sliced through the silence. A voice. Soft. Raspy. Feminine. But distorted. You heard me now. Leo froze. His skin prickled with goosebumps. His grip tightened around the phone. Then came the second part. Slower. Colder. I'll see you soon. Click. The line went dead. He sat there for a moment, blinking into the darkness of his room, his ears ringing from the silence that followed. A chill crawled up his spine despite the heat. He stared at the phone, waiting for the screen to light up again, for the number to reappear. Nothing. No missed call. No voicemail. No record that the call had even happened. He locked the phone and tossed it onto the other side of the bed. Weird-ass prank, he muttered, trying to force a laugh. That didn't come out right. But even after he turned off the light and lay back down, something felt off. The shadows in the corner of his room felt darker than they should have been. The fan's clicking sounded louder now, sharper. He closed his eyes, pulled the thin sheet over his chest, and told himself he was just being paranoid. It was probably some app, one of those creepy caller things that let you prank your friends. Someone must have gotten his number. It wasn't a big deal. He eventually drifted off. But sleep didn't bring rest. It brought something else. Leo dreamed of ringing phones, dozens of them, all around him, on tables, hanging from the ceiling, piled at his feet. Every one of them rang in sync with the same shrill tone. He tried to answer them, but no matter which phone he picked up, there was only static. And then, that voice again. "You heard me." He woke up gasping, sweat soaking his pillow. The sunlight filtering through his window told him it was morning, but the chill in his bones didn't match the warmth of the room. He sat up, rubbing his eyes, and grabbed his phone. No new calls, no messages. He got up to make coffee, trying to shake the leftover dread from the drink. The smell of cheap instant grounds helped, and for a while, it felt like the night before had been some bizarre half-memory. Until he went to take out the trash. The hallway outside his door was quiet, as always. The letters weren't written in marker. They weren't scratched in with a coin or key. These were deep, jagged cuts, like someone had used a blade. The wood splintered around the edges of each letter. Fresh. Leo stepped back, heart racing. He looked around the hallway. Empty. No footsteps, no scuff marks, no other signs of anyone being there. He touched the words with his fingers. The cuts were clean, cold to the touch. He backed into his apartment and slammed the door shut, locking the deadbolt and all 3 additional locks he'd never bothered using before. It wasn't a prank, not anymore. His mind raced with possibilities. Someone was watching him. Maybe someone who lived in the building. Maybe someone who followed him online. But why the call? Why that number? He searched the number on Google. Nothing. Then read it. A few results, mostly dismissed as hoaxes. But one post, dated back in 2017, stood out. Title. Leo clicked it. The post was short. I thought it was a joke too. I answered. A week later, I started seeing things. Voices. Shadows. My phone never stopped ringing. I threw it away. Didn't matter. They kept calling. Please, if you get the call, don't answer. Leo stared at the screen, his breath caught in his throat. Another comment below. My cousin answered. She disappeared 2 days later. Police found her phone in her bed, still ringing. He shut the laptop. Nope, not happening. Not real. He tried to distract himself. Netflix, games, even called Jordan, his best friend, but he didn't mention the number. Not yet. Not until he knew more. That night, he sat in bed again, scrolling, trying to stay awake. But sleep came fast, and the phone rang again. Same number, same screen. 305 666 000. He didn't answer. But the ringing didn't stop. Not for hours. And just before sunrise, his phone finally went silent, and a single notification appeared. Voicemail. One new message. Leo couldn't focus in class the next day. The only thing louder than the lecture on data structures was the echo of that raspy voice in his mind. You heard me now. I'll see you soon. It repeated like a broken song, one he hadn't chosen to play. His fingers tapped the edge of his notebook restlessly, not out of boredom, but from the jittery anxiety crawling under his skin. He needed to tell someone. Not his professors, not the cops. They'd either laugh or look at him like he was on something. He thought of Jordan, his roommate. Jordan was into weird conspiracy theories, always watching ghost hunter videos or reading about missing people cases in Florida. If there was anyone who might even remotely believe him, it was Jordan. After class, he met Jordan in the cafeteria. Leo looked tired. His eyes had those purple rings under them that screamed, "I didn't sleep." Jordan raised an eyebrow the moment Leo slumped into the seat across from him. "Bro," Leo started, whispering like they were in a spy movie. "I gotta tell you something. Just promise you won't say I'm crazy." Jordan took a bite of his sandwich and nodded. "This should be good." "I got a call," Leo said. "Last night, like at 2 a.m. Unknown number. It was..." He hesitated. "It was from 305-666-000. Jordan stopped chewing, slowly. His eyes narrowed. "You answered it?" Leo nodded. "I thought it was a prank. But when I picked up, I heard static. And then someone whispered." Jordan sat back, his chair creaking. He looked around, making sure no one was listening, then spoke with that tone he used when he was about to tell a scary campfire story. "Dude, there's this urban legend from back in the early 2000s. Some Miami number people kept getting calls from. Always unknown, always late at night. If you answered it, they said something followed you, like a spirit or whatever. It started with weird noises, messages on mirrors, then dreams. Then people would disappear." Leo frowned. "Disappear how? They'd just be gone. No signs of struggle, just gone. Phones left ringing. Some stories said the voicemail would be their voice screaming for help." Jordan shook his head. "I'm serious. Look it up. I read about it years ago on an old creepypasta thread. Thought it was fake, you know? But then someone said it actually happened to their cousin in Kendall. Girl just vanished after answering the call. They found you answered written on her bedroom wall. Cops thought it was a runaway. Her phone? Still getting missed calls." Leo rubbed his temples. "This is nuts. It's just a phone call. There's no way." He paused. "Wait, do you think it matters if I answer again?" Jordan looked genuinely alarmed. "You didn't answer again, right?" "No," Leo said, "but it called again, this morning." Jordan's shoulders tensed. "Did you let it ring?" "Yeah, I didn't touch it, but then it left a voicemail." Jordan stared. "Okay, that's not normal." "I know, I played it." Leo looked pale now. "Jordan, it was my voice. I swear to God, it was me. Crying, begging for help. Like I was being dragged away or something. I never recorded anything like that. I didn't even say anything out loud." Jordan's mouth hung open, eyes wide. "Play it." Leo hesitated. He didn't want to. Every part of him screamed, "Don't relive that sound." But he unlocked his phone, opened the voicemail app, and hit play. They both leaned in. The voice was shaky, distorted, full of static and tears, but unmistakably Leo's. "Please, help me. I don't know where I am." A crash, a scream. "They're coming. Don't let her in." Then silence. Jordan sat back slowly, stunned. "That's you." "I know," Leo said quietly. "But how?" Leo didn't respond. He just stared at his phone like it was a loaded gun on the table. The rest of the day passed like a blur. Leo tried to act normal, go to class, take notes. But every time his phone buzzed, his heart stopped. Every glance over his shoulder felt like someone would be there. And at one point, he swore he saw a figure in a dark hoodie watching him across the street. But when he blinked, they were gone. Back at the apartment, Jordan was researching like a madman. Reddit, archived forums, even old 4chan threads. All variations of the same story. People in Florida. Same number. Same pattern. Some posts were deleted. Others ended mid-sentence. One thread was titled, "I didn't listen. Now I'm marked." Leo didn't want to read it. That night, they stayed in the living room together. They kept the lights on, the windows locked, the curtains drawn. Jordan insisted they record everything on his webcam, just in case. At 2:13 a.m., the phone rang again. Leo stared at it. His hand shook. Same number. He let it ring. This time, he didn't even look at the screen. He turned the phone face down and backed away from it. Jordan was holding his breath. After the fifth ring, it stopped. No voicemail this time, but a knock came from the front door. 3 soft, deliberate taps. Leo's eyes widened. Jordan grabbed a baseball bat from under the couch. He always kept one, just in case. And tonight, it finally made sense. Leo whispered, "Don't open it." Jordan nodded. They stayed frozen. Then the knock came again. But this time, it came from the window. They lived on the 3rd floor. There was no balcony, no ledge, just glass. Leo mustered the courage to peek. Nothing, just the dark street below. Then, from his room, his phone buzzed. They both turned toward the hallway, staring into the darkness beyond the living room light. It buzzed again and again, like a heartbeat, rapid, angry. Leo stepped forward slowly. Jordan followed, bat raised. He opened his door. His phone was glowing on his bed. The screen said, "Live voicemail recording." They hadn't touched it. Leo picked it up, hand trembling, and tapped the screen to stop the recording. Immediately, the message uploaded. The phone autoplayed. It was Jordan's voice. "Leo, man, don't pick it up. Don't open it, bro. Look behind you." Then it turned to static, but Leo wasn't listening anymore. He was staring at Jordan. "Did you just say that?" Jordan shook his head slowly. "No." Leo's hands began to shake again. The phone dropped from his hand onto the bed, the screen cracking. But it still buzzed once more. This time, it showed a new contact request from Eliza. No last name, no number, just a contact icon with no face. Leo didn't know anyone named Eliza, but Jordan froze. "That was the name in that thread," he whispered. "The girl from Kendall, the one who disappeared." Leo slowly backed out of the room. Jordan did too. They didn't sleep that night. And in the morning, Leo's voicemail app was empty. The recordings were gone, as if they were never there. But the fear? It stayed. And for Leo, so did the number. Because that afternoon, while walking home from class, his phone rang again. But this time, the name wasn't unknown. It said, "Me." After 3 sleepless nights, Leo knew this wasn't something he could just ignore. The fear had rooted itself in his chest, growing stronger every time his phone lit up, even from harmless notifications. The line between coincidence and curse was beginning to blur. It wasn't just a prank. Not anymore. Not when he had heard his own voice crying from a voicemail he never recorded. not when someone or something was knocking on his third-floor window. Jordan tried to convince him to stay offline, to just forget the number. Maybe get a new phone, change his SIM, even move out. But Leo couldn't. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was being pulled toward something. Not just haunted, but chosen. Like once you answered, you weren't just a victim. You were part of something deeper. That's when he went back to Reddit. He typed in the number again. 305 666 000, expecting the usual hoaxes and reposted creepypastas, but this time a different thread appeared, one he hadn't seen before. The date was from 2012. A user named Milenko_Miami had posted in a now-dead subreddit titled R Local Horror 305. The post was short, barely 100 words, but it chilled Leo to the bone. 305 666 000 is not just a prank. My cousin answered it. She vanished a week later. Her name was Eliza. Cops said she ran away, but we know she didn't. She left her wallet, her keys, and her shoes. Her phone was still ringing. When we went to her apartment, the only thing written on her mirror was, "You answered." Leo read the post again and again. Eliza, the name that had appeared in his contacts days earlier. The one that hadn't come from anyone he knew. No picture, no history, just Eliza. He clicked the user's profile. It was inactive. No other posts, no comments. It was as if the account had existed only to post that one warning. Leo's mind was spinning. Who was she? Why was she showing up now? He started searching news articles, narrowing the dates around 2012, digging into missing persons archives. It took hours, but eventually he found a clipped, half-archived local piece from an old Miami Herald article. Authorities are continuing to search for Eliza Moreno, 21, who disappeared from her Kendall apartment late last week. Police say no signs of forced entry were found, and her personal belongings remain untouched. Surveillance footage shows her last leaving a small convenience store at 9:14 p.m. Her phone has not been recovered, though family members report it continued to ring for days following her disappearance. The case remains open. Leo's heart sank. He clicked the map linked to the article, scanning the address. It was 2 blocks away from where he lived. He stared at the screen, barely blinking, as if expecting her face to jump out at him. There was no photo in the article, just her name and a vague description. Latina, long black hair, last seen wearing a red hoodie. The same figure he thought he'd seen outside his window? He didn't know if it was paranoia or recognition, but something deep in his gut told him, it's her. He closed his laptop and grabbed his bike. The sun was just starting to dip into late afternoon, casting a soft orange hue across the palm trees lining the streets. The wind was thick with the scent of sea salt and jasmine from a nearby garden. But none of it felt comforting. He pedaled in silence, watching the street signs, counting each block until he reached the address from the article. The building stood quietly in the corner of a quiet residential street. It was one of those low-rise, beige-colored apartments that blended into the background of Miami's older neighborhoods. Paint peeled off the edges. Vines snaked up the side of the wall. The gate out front was rusted shut. He leaned his bike against a palm tree and walked closer. There were no cars in the driveway, no lights in the windows, no curtains, just stillness, like a forgotten snapshot. He walked along the small fence and found the mailbox out front. The metal was faded, spotted with rust. But someone or something had etched into it. She answered. The same words he'd seen on his own door. The letters weren't fresh, but they weren't old either. They looked scraped into the paint with something sharp. Deliberate. He stepped back, every hair on his neck standing on edge. There was no one on the street, no one watching, but he couldn't shake the feeling that eyes were on him. He walked around the back of the building, looking for anything else. Graffiti, candles, leftover police tape, something. Instead, he found a small concrete step leading up to a sliding glass door. It had a faded sticker on it that read, "No soliciting," and next to it, taped from the inside, a flyer with Eliza's name. It was yellowed, edges curling, like it had been there for years. But her eyes looked out from the grainy photo, wide, dark, and full of something that made his chest hurt. Like she knew something was coming. Like she tried to warn someone. He raised his phone to take a picture of the door, just as he tapped the shutter. His phone rang. He nearly dropped it. The number. 305-666-000. Leo stared at the screen, frozen. He hadn't heard it ring in daylight before. His thumb hovered over the screen. He knew what would happen if he answered. He didn't know what would happen if he didn't. It kept ringing. He turned away from the house and walked fast toward his bike, but it followed him, each ring louder, angrier. It felt like it was crawling into his ear. He let it go to voicemail. The ringing stopped, and immediately his phone buzzed again. New voicemail. 1. He didn't want to listen. He got on his bike and started pedaling, fast, back toward his apartment. The wind slapped his face, but it couldn't cool the heat rising in his chest. Once he was home, he slammed the door shut, locked it, then sat on the floor, panting. He pulled out his phone. The screen was still on the voicemail. He tapped play. At first, static. Then, his own voice again. But this time, not crying, laughing. It was a slow, breathy, almost mocking sound. As if someone was impersonating him. Or worse, like he was laughing at something coming that he couldn't stop. Then, the voice spoke. Not his. A woman's. You found her. Pause. But she found you first. The message ended with a high-pitched screech that made him rip his earbuds out. The room was silent. Too silent. And then, his bathroom light flickered on. He hadn't moved. Leo stood up, slowly, every muscle tight, every breath shallow. The door was cracked open. He hadn't even turned that light on today. He stepped toward it. The mirror was fogged up, but he hadn't taken a shower. And on the glass, written in dripping condensation, "You're next." Leo backed away. His phone slipped from his hand. From behind the curtain, he heard a sound, like someone breathing. Slow, deliberate. He grabbed the nearest object, a lamp, and flung it at the curtain. It crashed to the floor. Nothing, just water pooling on the tiles. Like someone had stepped out of the tub and vanished. He closed the door, locked it, then did the same to his bedroom. That night, he slept with the lights on, if you could call it sleep. But somewhere, in the quietest part of the night, his phone buzzed again. And this time, the voicemail came with a text. From Eliza. Message: you've heard me. Now it's your turn to listen. The days that followed were quiet, but not in the comforting way. It was the kind of quiet that made Leo feel like something was holding its breath in the corners of his apartment, waiting for the right moment to exhale. The phone hadn't rung again since the last message. No missed calls, no voicemails, no mysterious contact requests. But the silence didn't bring peace. It brought something worse. The first time it happened, Leo was brushing his teeth. It was just after 1 a.m., and he'd left the bathroom to grab a towel. He was sure he turned the faucet off. Absolutely sure. But when he came back, the water was running full blast. Cold, furious, like someone had punched the handle all the way on. He stood there for a second, staring at the water like it might explain itself. Maybe the knob's loose, he muttered, though it had never done that before. He turned it off. But Leo didn't leave. Something about it all felt like he couldn't, like leaving would just make it worse, or make it follow him somewhere else. And then came the footprints. That was what broke him. He had just finished a hot shower, steam clouding the mirror and warming the tiny bathroom. The tile floor was still damp as he stepped out, wrapped a towel around his waist, and walked out to grab his phone from the bedroom. When he came back, there were footprints, not his. They were small, barefoot prints, damp but already drying, leading from the center of the shower toward the mirror. Then they stopped. Not a single drop on the hallway floor, just in the bathroom. Leo froze. He didn't move. His own wet footprints trailed back to where he stood at the door. But these new ones were completely different. Too small. Too perfect. He looked into the fogged-up mirror. Nothing. Just steam and shadow. He stepped inside and leaned closer to the mirror, wiping away the center with his palm. At first, nothing changed, just his own exhausted reflection. Then it flickered. Like a glitch, just for a second, not even long enough for him to scream. He saw her. A girl, long, dripping black hair clinging to her face. Her eyes were empty sockets, bleeding upward instead of down. Her mouth wasn't open. It couldn't be. It was sewn shut, thick black thread crisscrossing over her lips, tied tight, like someone didn't want her to speak ever again. And she was standing exactly where he was standing, their reflections overlapping. Leo stumbled backward, nearly slipping on the wet tile. He turned around. Nothing. Empty room. Steam. Silence. But his phone buzzed in the bedroom. The sound cut through the air like a siren. He walked out, one slow step at a time. The phone lay on his pillow, screen glowing. New voicemail. From 305-666-000. He stared at it, debating whether to delete it or throw the phone out the window. Instead, his finger hovered, then tapped. The message played automatically. At first, silence. Then, the familiar hiss of static, as if the sound itself was being dragged across broken wires. And then, that voice. Not the raspy one from before. Not Eliza. This one was cold, flat, distant, but clear. "You're almost ready." That was all it said. No scream, no breath, just those 3 words. Leo didn't sleep that night. He didn't even lie down. He sat on the couch, fully dressed, eyes locked on the door. The next day, he went to the campus library and stayed there until closing. He didn't tell Jordan where he was. He didn't want to bring Jordan deeper into this. Not anymore. Jordan had started looking The hallway was unusually quiet. The lights above flickered, but this time it wasn't rhythmic. It was random. Angry. The kind of flicker you only see in movies right before something bad happens. He unlocked the door slowly. The moment he stepped inside, he knew something was wrong. The air was thick, wet almost, like a thunderstorm had passed through and left the humidity behind. His windows were fogged up from the inside. His mirror was already fogged over again, and in the air, faint but undeniable, was the smell of mildew, like damp cloth that hadn't dried for weeks. He walked straight to the bathroom. The lights were on, not flickering, just on. The mirror was fully fogged, more than it had ever been, and written in the fog, in long, dragging finger streaks, were the words, "She's behind you." Leo didn't move. He didn't want to. But instinct made him look. Nothing was there. He turned back to the mirror. The message was gone. The fog completely cleared. He looked at himself in the reflection, drained, pale, trembling. And that's when he saw it again. A shape, not clear, not fully formed, but behind him, standing in the doorway. This time, he didn't turn. He whispered to the reflection, "What do you want?" The mirror didn't answer, but he could feel it. The breath on the back of his neck, the weight of invisible eyes pressing on his shoulders. Then the light above him popped. Glass rained down, and the room went dark. He lunged for the hallway, slipped, caught himself on the wall, heart racing. His phone buzzed again. He didn't even look at it. He just ran. Out of the apartment, down the stairs, onto the street. He didn't care that it was 1:17 in the morning. He didn't care that he was barefoot. He just ran. He didn't stop until he reached a diner, one of those old 24-hour spots with bad coffee and better fluorescent lighting. He sat in a booth, ordered a cup of something, and stared at the table. He checked the phone. New voicemail. He tapped it with a shaking hand. The message was silent for a long time. Almost a full minute. Then came a soft, distant sound, like a wet, dragging noise. Then, the same voice as before. Monotone, calm, quiet. "She's here now. Don't speak. Don't look. Just listen." Leo dropped the phone and slid it across the table. The waitress gave him a strange look, but didn't ask. He stayed there until sunrise. When he got home, the mirror was clean. The air was dry. The lights worked. The apartment looked normal. But on the floor, in the center of the hallway, sat a single, soaking wet footprint. Not his, and it was facing his bedroom door. That night, he didn't answer any calls, but he didn't need to. Because now, he heard her voice even when the phone wasn't ringing. And it was getting louder. Leo had stopped pretending his life was normal. Every shadow felt suspicious now. Every silence louder than it should be. The phone didn't need to ring for him to know she was near. He felt her, like static in his veins, a quiet pull from something just out of sight. And every time he tried to ignore it, the signs came louder, closer, and colder. It was Jordan who suggested they try to find where the number came from. Not because he thought it would solve anything, but because doing nothing was worse. They sat together on the grimy floor of Leo's apartment, surrounded by half-drunk energy drinks, half-eaten fast food, and a pile of printed forum posts, trying to string together something that made sense. Jordan's laptop screen glowed between them. "Okay," he said, scrolling through old maps and user-submitted reports. "So I cross-referenced every mention of the number with addresses people mentioned. It keeps coming back to one area, Wynwood. Not just anywhere in Wynwood, a corner near Northeast 25th Street and 2nd Avenue. And get this, there used to be a public phone booth there, shut down in the early 2000s. Leo stared at him. "You're telling me a haunted payphone is responsible for all this?" Jordan nodded slowly. "That's exactly what I'm saying." They biked there that night, just after midnight. Wynwood was different after dark. By day, it was all tourists, murals, overpriced coffee, and Instagram models. But at night, it emptied out. The colorful graffiti walls faded into strange shadows. The quiet between alleyways felt longer, like the buildings were listening. They found the corner, easily. It was just off a side street, past a warehouse with broken windows, and a fenced-in lot full of twisted nettle and forgotten pallets. The booth stood alone beneath a flickering street lamp. It was covered in rust. Its glass cracked, stickers half peeled on the frame. The receiver hung limply on its cord, swinging slightly, as if someone had just let go. It looked dead, but it felt alive. Leo approached first. Every step felt heavier, like the air thickened around him, or like gravity had decided to play tricks. Jordan stayed back, watching nervously, his fingers twitching near his phone like he might dial 911 if something went wrong. Leo reached out and touched the booth. The metal was cold, too cold. Then his phone rang. He flinched, looked down. 305-666-000. The same cursed number. Jordan's voice cracked the silence. "Leo, don't answer. Please, man." Leo hesitated. His thumb hovered over the screen. He could almost hear her already. Not through the phone, but in his head. Like her voice lived there now. Still, he pressed answer. At first, nothing. No static, no whisper. Just silence. And then something even worse. He saw movement in the reflection of the booth's shattered glass. He turned his head slowly. Across the street, Under the skeletal remains of an old street sign stood a girl. She wasn't there a second ago. She had long, black hair, soaked like she had just stepped out of a storm. Her clothes clung to her frame, dark jeans, red hoodie, torn near the shoulder. Her skin was pale, but not in a dead way, more like something drained of light, and she was staring at him, not blinking, not breathing, just staring. Leo whispered into the phone, even though he didn't know why. "Eliza?" The girl took a step forward, then another. Jordan saw her too. "Holy shit, Leo, get away from there!" But Leo couldn't move. Eliza kept walking. Not fast, not slow, just inevitable. Her eyes never left his. The phone in his hand was warm now, buzzing against his skin with a low, constant hum, like a heartbeat, or like it was alive. As she crossed the street, a car came speeding through the intersection, but it passed right through her. No reaction, no contact. The headlights flickered for a split second, like they had glitched. The driver didn't even notice. Leo's breath hitched. She stopped on the sidewalk, just a few feet from him now. Her mouth opened. It wasn't sewn shut anymore. But instead of speaking, she raised her hand, wet, trembling, and pointed at the booth. Then she disappeared. Not vanished. She simply blinked out, like a skipped frame in a movie. Jordan ran up, panting, grabbing Leo by the arm. "We're done. We are so done. You saw that, right? I didn't imagine that?" The screen went black, then flashed back to the home screen. No call record. No log. Nothing. Leo dropped the phone into his pocket. His legs felt like rubber. His chest hurt. They walked away in silence, bikes forgotten, footsteps loud on the empty street. Back at the apartment, Leo couldn't stop shaking. He splashed water on his face, paced, sat down, stood up, paced again. Jordan stayed in the living room, looking through the footage from his body cam. He had worn it as a joke, just in case. Now it didn't feel funny anymore. "Leo," Jordan called out, "you need to see this." Leo walked in, rubbing his hands together to stop. The screen went completely black for 3 full seconds. When it came back, she was gone. But on the audio, barely audible beneath the static, was a voice. Not Leo's, not Jordan's, a soft, wet whisper. "Let him hear what I could not say." Jordan paused it. Leo sat down. "What does that mean?" he asked. Jordan stared at the screen. I think she's trying to talk, but something's stopping her, or maybe someone." Leo nodded. "She pointed at the booth, like she wanted me to use it." Jordan frowned. "Use it? How? It's dead. It's not even connected." Leo stood up again. "It doesn't matter. I think it still works. Not like a phone, like a door." Jordan looked horrified. "No, dude, you're not going back." Leo didn't answer. Leo hadn't really been sleeping in days, not in the real sense. His body would collapse from exhaustion for an hour or two at a time, but his mind never left the waking world. In those fragments of rest, he wasn't recharging. He was wandering, floating through long hallways that didn't exist, chased by the echoes of his own voice calling for help. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her. Eliza, drenched in shadows, standing at the edge of some place that wasn't quite here, but wasn't far enough away. Back home, he was falling apart. He stopped checking the time. It didn't matter. Morning, night, it all blended into the same dim haze. He didn't eat. Couldn't. Every time he tried, the taste turned to ash in his mouth. His stomach flipped, even at the thought of food. The world outside his apartment might have kept moving, but inside these walls, it was always 3:05 a.m., and the phone never stopped ringing. Even when he turned it off, power completely down, the screen would flicker on. It would vibrate, buzz, light up. Even when he yanked out the SIM card, it still rang. No number, no caller ID, just endless calls from nowhere. He tried leaving it in the kitchen once and locking himself in his bedroom. It rang through the wall. Then it rang from inside the room. He opened the drawer and found it there. He didn't remember bringing it. He didn't remember anything clearly anymore. Messages started appearing around him, not digital ones. These weren't texts or emails. They were written on the mirror, in the steam, on the wall above his bed, on the condensation of the kitchen window. You heard me. You saw me. You're next. He scrubbed them off with towels. They reappeared the next day, sometimes bigger. He was standing in his hallway, staring at his own reflection in the window. But it wasn't his reflection. It moved differently, tilted its head in the opposite direction, smiled when he didn't, and when it whispered, "I'm coming through," the glass cracked. When he woke up, the window really was cracked. He stopped telling Jordan everything, not because he didn't trust him, but because Jordan looked like he was starting to break too. There were bags under his eyes, deeper than Leo had ever seen. He was jumpy, paranoid, always looking over his shoulder, like he had started hearing things too. One night, in a panic, Jordan called someone. He came back a few hours later, paler than usual. He didn't speak for a while, just sat on the floor, his back against the wall, eyes staring straight ahead. Finally, Leo asked, "Well?" Jordan shook his head slowly. She wouldn't come. I told her everything. I told her your name, the number, the dreams. She went quiet on the call. Then she said, he swallowed hard. She said, if the call reached him, it's already too late. Leo said nothing. There was nothing left to say. The apartment had started changing too. It wasn't just the noises now. It was the temperature, the lights, the way time behaved. One night, the microwave clock said 11:08. When Leo looked back 2 seconds later, it said 3:07. Then blinked 12 o'clock over and over. The walls creaked, even when the wind outside was still. The ceiling fan above his bed spun on its own, slowly, without power. One evening, the power actually did go out. But only in Leo's unit. The rest of the building stayed lit. He called maintenance. They said they'd come in the morning.
But during that blackout, Leo saw her again. He lit a candle and walked into the hallway. The flame flickered violently, like the air around him was breathing. Then, at the far end of the hall, she appeared. Eliza, just standing there, drenched, face half covered by hair, dress dripping with black water that left no trail behind her. Leo didn't scream. He couldn't. His throat clenched shut like it didn't want to betray him. She began to walk. No sound, no rush, just silent steps towards him. Leo backed into the living room. The candle flickered harder. The shadows on the wall twisted into something he didn't recognize. He turned. The candle blew out, and for 2 seconds, everything was pitch black. When he lit his phone's flashlight, the hallway was empty.
But her footprints were there, wet, leading all the way to his door, then stopping. He slept at Jordan's that night. Or tried to. The ringing followed him, even without the phone, even when it was turned off and locked in another room. It called to him. Not through sound, through something else, like an itch inside his brain, like a hum beneath his skin. At 3:05 a.m., Jordan's landline rang. Neither of them had used that phone in months. It was a backup. A joke, really. They both stared at it from across the room. Jordan whispered, "Don't pick it up." Leo nodded. They let it ring. Then they let it go to voicemail. After 5 long rings, the machine clicked on. The voice that played wasn't Eliza's. It wasn't Leo's. It was something wrong. Distorted. Hollow. Like someone trying to mimic a human voice, but failing. "You should have answered," it said. Then the line went dead. The next morning, Leo went home. The hallway outside his apartment smelled like seawater and mold. The floor creaked even though it was solid concrete. A thin line of water ran from beneath his front door, like someone had spilled a glass. He opened the door slowly. Everything inside looked normal again. But on the table was his phone. It had turned itself on, and there was a new voicemail waiting. He stared at the notification for a long time before pressing play. The voice was his own, again, breathing fast, whispering. "Jordan's next," it said. Leo dropped the phone, ran. He found Jordan in his bedroom, slumped over his laptop. He was alive, just unconscious, but his phone lay beside him, screen cracked, buzzing. 3 didn't listen to music or watch anything with sound. He didn't trust his own voice anymore, because in his dreams, it started talking back. And it wasn't him anymore, it was her. Leo knew it was coming, not because he saw a sign in the sky, or because the phone rang at some ungodly hour again, or because Eliza had visited in another dream, but because of the silence. It was too quiet, too still. The storm was over, but the sea hadn't calmed. It had vanished. That final night, he didn't try to fight it. He didn't run, didn't go to Jordan's, didn't turn off his phone. He accepted it, like a man condemned, making peace with the executioner's blade. But before it all ended, he did one last thing. He turned on the camera. It wasn't fancy. Just the webcam on his laptop, sitting on the desk in his dim bedroom. The only light came from the glow of the screen and a small bedside lamp that flickered more than it shone. Leo looked thinner now. Not sickly, but like the weight of everything had carved itself into his bones. He stared at the lens for a long time before speaking. The clock on his screen read 2:51 a.m. He had time. Barely. He cleared his throat. "If you're watching this," he said slowly, "it means I'm probably gone." He didn't blink as he spoke. His voice was calm. Too calm. "My name is Leo Matos. I'm 23. I live in Miami, Florida. 3 weeks ago, I got a phone call from a number I didn't recognize. 305-666-000. I answered it, and that's when everything changed." He paused, took a breath. "I know this sounds like a joke, some creepy internet thing, but I swear to you, this is..." His eyes flicked to the corner of the room, briefly. "If you get a call from that number, don't answer. Please, even if you're curious, even if you think I'm full of shit, don't do it. Because once you answer, it doesn't stop. It follows you. It learns you. It uses your voice, your memories, your face, and then takes you." The lamp behind him dimmed for a moment, as if listening. Leo's voice dropped lower. "She's not just a ghost. She's not looking for help. She's looking for someone to replace." Another pause. This one longer. I think she was trapped. A long time ago. Maybe she answered a call too. Maybe she screamed and no one came. Maybe she was never heard. So now she uses us. Uses the line. The clock now read 3:03 a.m. He leaned closer. "I can hear her now. Every night. Not just in the phone. In the walls. In the pipe. I'm okay with that. I just don't want anyone else to be next." Then he looked directly into the camera. "If I disappear, don't answer 305-666-000. The video ended, and 2 minutes later, it uploaded to his private YouTube account at 3:05 a.m. The morning light over Miami was soft and golden, filtering through the blinds like it always did, as if the city wasn't holding its breath. Birds chirped. Cars passed. Kids rode bikes and couples walked dogs, and Leo's apartment stood silent. Jordan came by at 10:17 a.m., knocking 3 times before entering with the spare key Leo had given him months ago. The apartment was still. No signs of a struggle. No broken glass. No blood. No overturned furniture. The bed was neatly made. The lamp was on. The windows were closed. Even the cursed mirror looked clean. The only thing out of place was the phone. It sat on the bed, screen lit up. It was ringing. Jordan stared at it, his heart beating so loudly it drowned out the hum of the ceiling fan above. The number wasn't showing. Just one word. Leo. He didn't touch it at first. But when the ringing stopped and the screen changed to new voicemail, one from Leo, he knew he was already too far in. He pressed play. There was a long silence at first, then static, familiar now, intimate. Then Leo's voice, quiet, faint, but clear. "I told you not to answer." His breath hitched. "Now she's with you too." Then nothing. Jordan dropped the phone. He backed away slowly, eyes darting around the room, like something might crawl out from behind the dresser or ooze down from the ceiling. But nothing came. Not yet. Instead, the phone buzzed again. No number, no name, just a notification. Contact request from Eliza. Jordan didn't accept it. He left the apartment in silence, locking the door behind him. But that night, when he lay in bed with the lights on, too afraid to sleep, the phone on his nightstand began to ring. And he didn't need to look to know the number. 305-66000. It rang once, twice, 3 times, then stopped. He breathed a shaky sigh of relief. But just as he closed his eyes, he heard it. From the mirror, a whisper, his own voice. "Don't answer." He turned. The mirror was fogged. Written in dripping letters were 3 words. "You heard me. Dut." It was one